Welcome to episode 7 of Money Revealed. Would you have imagined that there are this many perspectives, so many points of view about this thing called money, so many different ways to think about how to create wealth, how to protect wealth, how to grow wealth? And you might say, well, who's right and who's wrong? I think they're all right. It's just a matter of what applies most to you. So I'm really excited to bring you episode 7. There's a lot more content, a lot more things to learn here about this very important subject called money. And again, I just want to encourage you, you should own Money Revealed. We have a variety of packages. Find the one that's right for you, invest in that package, have it change your life, have it create more financial stability, have it create more wealth for you. And maybe you can also be somebody who can share this information with others and help them too. So let's dive right into episode 7. When I think of Patrick Byrne, the term Titan comes to mind. Someone who is just big in a space, who has great, immense impact, great vision for a future, who has done big things in the world. Patrick Byrne is the CEO of Overstock.com, and he has an enthusiasm and an excitement and a vision for blockchain like nobody I have ever met, and he puts his money where his mouth is. So you're about to hear from someone who is a great genius, who has had massive effect in the world already and plans on doing even bigger things. Enjoy this interview with Patrick Byrne. Patrick, I've had a lot of anticipation and enthusiasm to sit down with you, so thank you for taking the time.
Patrick, it's my honor. Glad to be here.
You have a fascinating academic and business background, so can we just start with you reviewing that with us?
Much sound and fury signifying nothing. Told by an idiot. Well, undergrad was at Dartmouth and also in Beijing Teachers University. And but shortly after I got out of college, and I wasn't really sure I was going to do any grad school, but within weeks of getting out of college, turns out I had cancer. And I spent 3 years having cancer 3 times and in and out of the hospital and stuff. So Stanford was wonderful. They let me, there was a degree, a master's in mathematical logic. From the sort of philosophy and math department, taught it. And so I went out for that and got sick again. So Stanford ended up being wonderful to me, letting me do this work while I was in and out of the hospital. Then I won a Marshall Fellowship to England, and I went to Cambridge for a couple of years, did a master's and sort of switched more to ethics, and then came back and finished up the doctorate at Stanford in philosophy with like a heavy concentration on jurisprudence and economics.
So what made you pursue philosophy? Why did you think that was the direction that you wanted to study?
I had a lot to do with actually wanting, to figure out man's place in the universe, what our obligations are, the big questions, all that. I was sick and dying of cancer. And I had cancer, like I say, 3 times. And I spent much of 3 years hospitalized. So it left me with a lot of questions. And since I was, for much of my 20s, I was more or less an invalid in many times anyway. It seemed to make sense to be a graduate student because I was recovering for very long periods at a time.
Did you start to see the relationship, or is there a relationship between economics as you were studying it also and philosophy, and how did these things intersect?
Well, they did for me in actually one conversation that, how the right conversation with someone changes the direction, even maybe 10 or 15 degrees, it deflects your life a bit. I had one of those conversations in 1988. I was on my way to Vietnam, and I stopped and met an Indian man, a very interesting character. You, with your Randian background, may not appreciate the altruistic side of his life, but if the altruism is chosen, what's your attitude about it?
My personal attitude?
Yeah.
Well, then you're serving a value. So in a sense, it's not pure selflessness because you're serving a value that's personal to you, and it would be an appropriate thing to do.
Well, this was a very interesting guy he's dead now, but he was an Indian fellow who came over to the U.S., was an engineer, converted to Christianity, went home to India, this is in the 1950s, and became semi-rich on Indian standards, manufacturing farm implements, and worth several $1 million. And he woke up one day, and he's the kind of guy who converted to Christianity and sort of took it very seriously and thought it really was about feeding and helping the poor and things like that. So he sold everything, turned it all into capital, and spent the rest of his life doing capitalist deeds that really helped people. And his first one was he took a few $1 million into what was then East Pakistan. Pakistan used to be a country with India in the middle. What's now Bangladesh was East Pakistan. When I was a kid, there was this terribly vicious war. And when the Pakistani army withdrew, they were given orders to rape everybody, all the women they could. And in Muslim, that was the first time rape was used as a tool of weapon of war in modern times that I can think of. But that was a specific policy implemented because they knew it's really corrosive to a Muslim society, because these bunch of women get pregnant. First of all, of course, everyone who gets raped, gets kicked out of the family. And then if they've had, so anyway, this guy shows up with his capital and he built chicken farms. And he built these chicken factories that housed workers. And he ended up housing tens of thousands of Bangla women. All of them were owners. All of them became, he actually became the largest chicken producer outside of communist China. Anyway, the point of the story was he did this he knew that the social effect would be that the women would, once they earned money, their families would find it within their hearts to forgive them for being raped and things like that. And it knitted society together. He went on and just did a number of projects like that, capitalistic projects, but he always made his money back, but he was never trying to do more than make his money back.
Well, in a sense, and this is what I think when we talk about maybe altruism, but one of the fundamental tenets, because I think the philosophy of money and how it's used as a resource is something we should discuss. But that concept, to me, it rings the phrase, the best way to help the poor is not be one of them. So he wasn't being altruistic in the sense of saying he just gives away everything he's got. He creates value, but then applies it to solving a problem in the world.
Right.
So what is your philosophy on money? How do you see money? What is it? How would you define it? And then what's its application in the world from your own philosophy?
Well, money can be a lot of different things. One of them is a means of communication among humans. One of them is a store of value. To me, what I really see it as is gunpowder for me. I'm trying to fix up a few corners of the world that I've been lucky enough to get a chance to fix up. And I've been able to use money as the gunpowder in my battles. And now it means the freedom to the capital to build some of these new, we've now invested in 19 blockchain businesses. We are trying to nurture to life this whole blockchain universe and play a constructive role in it. So to me, money is the potential. When you view it as capital, what Aristotle said capital is potential. That's what capital is. We are playing kind of a unique role in nurturing to life this ecosystem of blockchain. That's that money gives us the potential to do that.
In your business trajectory, so you started, so what were the first businesses you were involved in, and then how did you emerge to Overstock? How did you get here?
Well, since I was a kid, I was always doing businesses, and in particular a Christmas tree lot that I ran for 3 years that worked out well for a 16-year-old. It would seem a big deal to make in 2 weeks to make a few $1,000 seemed like just unbelievable, and things like that. And then on a farm, and my brother and I had a hay business on a farm. But it was after college. I started, as I was doing this graduate work, I started doing small-scale investing in my oldest brother, and he got into real estate. I worked with him on some acquisitions of some deals. He really found the deals. He was a Wall Street guy, and anyway, he came out west and he got into the business of real estate in the ski area. And so I piggybacked some of that, and then I led a group of investors in a small real estate deal myself. And one thing led to another. So I went through real estate. I bought a small manufacturing company in New Hampshire, made plasma tips, electrodes for plasma torches. And so I was involved in heavy industry and in factories selling my torch tips and things like that. Worked for Buffett for a couple of years, ran a group of his companies. And then actually I had just been thinking I was going to retire, and had pretty much gone into retirement, was teaching.
What age was this?
About 36.
Okay, early retirement.
Early retirement. When the idea for Overstock came along, and I jumped in for what I thought would be 6 months, 12 months. And ever since then, it's like The Godfather 3. Every time I start to get out, they suck me back in.